Analyst Dr. Mawowa. A very good evening to you, Dr. Mawowa. Thank you so much for joining us. In his quest to to revive Zimbabwe's battered image, is this what Zimbabwe needs? Of course, by Emmerson Mnangagwa.
Well, I think your reporter from Harare has captured it quite well. It's a charm offensive, but nevertheless a welcome development in my view, and a commission that deserves to be given a chance. Quite balanced, maybe, except for one of the appointees who is a publicly confessed supporter of ZANU-PF and who has already expressed their view on the violence that happened, Professor Manyeruke. But otherwise, it's a very balanced appointment, broad terms of reference, that gives the commission leeway to do its work, and Motlanthe, who is chairing, a much trusted individual.
Of course, the appointment of Mr. Motlanthe, is this a sign that the government wants to ensure the best neutrality in investigations? You've just said it is a balanced appointment. Are we likely to see heads roll? Because fingers have been pointing to the security forces as being responsible for the election violence. So are we likely to see a finality, or are we likely to see this report or whatever outcome of the investigation seeing the light of day?
I think the question is whether there's a preparedness to administer the recommendations that will come from the commission. But certainly it's an opportunity to ask some critical questions. I mean, up to now, we don't quite know who authorized the security forces to go onto the streets. The president has not been very clear on whether he knew, whether he ordered. So there is no way that this commission can do its work without addressing those hard questions, even revisiting questions of security sector reform. So it would be quite a lost opportunity if the recommendations, hopefully, that will be positive, are not implemented.
Is it being disingenuous, though, saying that he doesn't know who issued those orders? I mean, given his links with the army?
I think if it's disingenuous, it does disservice to him, because then it suggests that the center is not holding. There's a possibility that there are multiple centers of power. Some have suggested that this commission of inquiry could also be an opportunity to settle issues within ZANU-PF or within the security establishment. So assuming that he was not entirely involved, this could be a legitimate way of dealing with malcontents within his inner circles.
You have praise singers who say that, well, it is a fact that the exit of the former president, done by Zimbabweans themselves, actually opened doors for a better life. There's now freedom of the press, there's now freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, the rule of law, and freedom to do business. Is this a correct view?
Yeah, I mean, this commission inquiry as a first step, if one says he has made these kinds of promises, and this is the first time we have seen him acting on one of his promises. And I think the things that you have listed are certainly issues of concern. I mean, a bone of contention with the dispute around the election is the freedom of press, particularly the role of the state media. We have just seen, I think, a day or so ago where some prominent media personalities have actually been victimized that were working for the state. And one could say, well, maybe for him it's still work in progress. So much would depend on whether he would deliver on his promises, and the international community is looking.
Now, as the first election after Robert Mugabe and the election drama thereof unfolded, Zimbabweans had high expectations that SADC, the regional body SADC, will observe the elections with all the legitimacy it deserves. So now that everything's been said and done, do you think that these elections functioned as a barometer for SADC's, or rather to test SADC's institutional capacity to observe free and fair elections?
I think that's a very important question, because we need to look at Zimbabwe's elections in terms of the role of SADC. As much as we have been quick to give a verdict on whether Zimbabwe has delivered a free and fair election or not. But I think it's important that we also make a verdict on the role of SADC in monitoring elections across the region. And there are certainly areas that could be improved as far as the Zimbabwe election is concerned, and what SADC used as a measure for free and fair elections. So, for example, the focus on the presence and absence of violence tends to miss out systematic issues around election rigging. And these are some of the things that came up even as the opposition protested the outcome. And I think these lessons are very important because we have a problem seemingly that is coming in December in terms of the DRC election. And I think it's important for SADC to take seriously when concerns are raised prior to the election to avoid an outcome that is disputed. And it is important to look at the DRC election in the same light.
Mr. Mawowa, thank you so much for your input. We appreciate it. That is political analyst Dr. Showers Mawowa joining us live on the line. This is The Globe on SABC News. We'll have more news shortly after this.